Hi, hi, welcome to the show. This is Joycelyn Linton coming into the higher calling. Excuse me. Today is the 11th of March, 2018, Sunday. It's Mothering Sunday. I'm at St. Edmund's Church. Excuse me. I'm at St. Edmund's Church. And the first reading is taken from Exodus chapter 2, verse 1 to 10. The service is going to start in the next 15 minutes, so I'm going to have to do this reading in parts. But can I tell you, folks, that this is a very complex reading. It's a very complex reading. And it's got an alternate. It's also got the first book of Samuel, chapter 1, verse 20 to end. So I assume that as the service starts, they're going to decide which one of these liturgy. But I'm going to take the first one. And I'm saying, as I as I read it, it really resonates. It comes home to me in the fact that the Lord has given me a task to do. And I'm going to tell you, folks, it is a task. The Lord is saying, to do art. And I must say, since I was a child, I had a flair in art. And I used to be good at doing art when I was at school. I wasn't, because of my parents, I had to get the academics over with, and then I did the arts in my A-level years. So I did O and A-level together, and then I had the opportunity to go to art school. But then I went into the health profession. So until around 2013, in my dream, the Lord said, I want you to do art. But I was so full of the health profession in me that I wasn't sure how to go about it. But because nothing was working for me at the time, since that time, whatever I did, it just wasn't coming together. Until some years later, I think it was about 2016, the Lord says, I told you to do art. Okay? So now I had to start to really look into it now. And the Lord is showing me, some drawings that He wants me to do. And they are quite complex drawings. And it is a skill to do these type of drawings. So in reading this Exodus chapter 2, verse 1 to 10, I thought to myself, people are rowing with one another. But really, we need to be spending time understanding the scriptures. That's where true intelligence lies. And I'm giving this to you, folks, as a gift for the morning, Mothering Sunday. This is a gift to tell you that if we really want to know about intelligence, we should be reading the scriptures and learn how to operate in high intelligence and learn how to be intelligent. And that's a corny speech here. That's a corny speech. But I'm going to read Exodus 2, verse 1 to 10. And it says here, a reading from the book of Exodus. A man from the house of Levi went and married a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a fine baby, she hid him for 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and plastered it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds on the bank of the river. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. The daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, while her attendants walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid to bring it. When she opened it, she saw the child. He was crying, and she took pity on him. This must be one of the Hebrews' children, she said. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and get you a nurse from a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Yes." So the girl went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed it. When the child grew up, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and she took him as her son. She named him Moses because she said, "I drew him out of the water." Okay, so now this is the Good News version, in Good News Bible version, that's on the church pamphlet. But if we read the wording, the actual wording in Exodus chapter 2, and I'm not going to read it over again. There are just certain words that I want to take out of the King James Version here. So the King James Version, it talks about the river brink, which is the side of which here it says that, and she put the child in it and placed it among the reeds on the bank of the river. So that's where the water meets up to the bank. And those of us who remember our geography at school, we know that. Nice, thank you. It knows that the speed of the river determines the shape of the river bank, you see. So that tells us that maybe this river was I would say, in its latter stage, because that baby would have been washed down the river. So it must have had a little bed there. It must have had a slope there that the mum could have taken that faith to leave her baby in a basket there and to just rest by the river brink, as in the King James Version says, the river brink. And also another word that I like about the King James Version, it says that when Pharaoh's daughter, if I can find it here, and that's verse 6, and when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept, and she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." So she had compassion. And I prefer the word compassion over the word pity. And another one, she said, "This is one." And can I tell you, folks, the one is the word in due season. But another thing that I like about the King James Version to the Good News, I prefer the description here in the King James Version than in Good News Version. If we go to verse 3 of chapter 2 in Exodus, it says, "And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and laid it in the flags of the river brink." So, when we go into churches or the cathedrals, what do we see? We see arks, yes? We see, if I've gone to Westminster Abbey, and I like the architecture, and I've yet to ask permission to be able to draw inside there. I began a drawing, and it was of an ark, but they said to me, "You must get authority to be able to be in the cathedral in this way and draw." But I really like to look up on the arches, and it's very therapeutic, to do the arch, to bring the pencil up one way in the curve, and then bring it in another curve, and to be able to shade. But there's a technique, and can I tell you, the Lord showed me this technique, how to do the arches. So it's a skill to be able to draw the river and to draw the brink of the river, you see. So what I'm saying, we are dealing with a complex God or a complex Lord. And the good thing about it is that it says here, one. The Pharaoh's daughter said that the baby must be one of the Hebrews. So that means in this season, and I've been talking about where we are in the season of the Lord according to his promise and according to his coming, you see. And over the last weeks, I said that we've gone through the prophets, then we went through the priest. Now we've gone through Elijah in his ascension process, where he's one with the Spirit of the Lord. And that means it's a time of consecrated prayers, where we become one with the Lord. And can I tell you, folks, that the Lord has brought to my notice this week in my daily prayers and biblical reading, scriptural reading, that the Lord is going to put conscience in us. He's going to alert the conscience in us. And Paul talks about that in the book of Romans and Corinthians. He talks about us having conscience. That means we're coming up into a higher level of ourselves, a higher decor, where we begin to recognize and discern good from evil. So we begin to see our ways that may not meet the approval of the Lord. And you know, the Lord has me read on a regular basis Daniel chapter 9 verse 24. And I'm just going to flick over to Daniel now. And the service is going to start in the next 4 minutes. So I just flick over to Daniel. And if I go over to chapter 9 verse 24, and I'll read verse 25 actually, because that's where the concern is. It says, how therefore and understand... hold on. Is this... yeah. It says... oh yes, verse 24, excuse me. 70 weeks are determined upon the people and upon the holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy. So folks, can I reveal to you, can I give you a revelation here? Are you willing to accept this revelation that the Lord has passed on to me? And on this Mothering Sunday, I am telling you that we are all a gift to the Lord. And when the Lord gives us gift, or when he says we are gift, we are worthy in his eyes to come up to oneness with him. Yes, folks, we are worthy in his eyes to come up to oneness with him. Let me stay in remembrance of what I'm about to say now. So in this season, in this schedule of the Lord's coming, in this schedule of standing on the word of the Lord that remains steadfast and everlasting, in this season of standing on the promise of the word of the Lord, of his redeeming us back to him, bringing us back into our divine beings, who we really are. We are truly divine beings, folks. Are you hearing me? Are you hearing what I am saying on this Mothering Sunday? I'm about to give birth to you, folks. Yes, through the word of the Lord that flows through this living vessels, folks. So I am saying to you, folks, and let me keep my rhythm here. I have a sweet little daughter who's just looking into my eyes with a sweet smile and a little pink bow on the side of her hair. Oh, good, thank you. You want to come and say something? Okay, so let me just say, so it says, reconcile with sin. Reconcile. So it says here, if I go back to Daniel, chapter 29, verse 24, it says here, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, and to make reconciliation for iniquity. So transgression is that we are all worthy souls. So the Lord sees the soul in us. He doesn't see the flesh and the personality. He sees the soul. So we have been doing wrong to one another through the soul, not through the flesh. We're supposed to have high opinions of one another. We're to help each other grow and develop and don't stunt each other's growth, you see. And when we put each other down, that's transgression, because the Lord sees the soul in us, you see. And the sin is the flesh, because the Lord is against the flesh, you see.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
What is this?
It's a microphone, it's a speaker. Mm-hmm. So what the Lord is saying is that, and according to Paul in Romans and Corinthians, now is the time where the Lord shall alert us in conscience of right and wrong. And as he brings it to our awareness where we have gone wrong in him, we are to take it to him in prayers. I'm going to say